I suspect that this is going to be a hugely unpopular video, and that's fine. I don't really post anything for popularity's sake, more to instigate thought and discussion, I suppose, and hopefully make people aware of some of the strange things happening in our world. Um, I'm going to read a quote to start us off that I came across just today. It's a quote that I had read before, heard before. I've actually been trying to remember where it came from, and these folks in conversation reminded me of that. Let me just read this for you. The quote is this, and it encapsulates the gist of the thought that I remembered. I can't really say with certainty whether this is a word for word exact representation of the quote, but it seems close to what I remembered anyway. All right, so we shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. And then a subsequent poster pointed out that uh, this is a quote from Albert Pike. Albert Pike, who was a Freemason, founder of one of the iterations of the KKK, a Satanist slash Luciferian, and a Confederate general who, for a long time, had a statue in Washington, D.C. until it was, I believe, torn down or defaced during a protest. At which point, Donald Trump actually made a comment about the statue. Albert Pike was a pretty nasty guy. Um, and he really took Scottish Rite Freemasonry and formed it into the even more overtly satanic organization that it is today, especially within the upper echelons. Once you hit that Royal Arch degree, the Freemason is taught the name of Freemasonry's God, and guess what? It's not the God of the Bible. It's not the Creator, the true God of heaven. It's not Jesus. And the Freemason uh, recants any faith and disowns faith in any other deity. It swears allegiance to essentially an avatar of Lucifer. That is what Freemasonry is. It is a container that looks good and Christianized and is associated with good works on the outside, and so it allows Satanism to exist in Christianized societies where for a long time, the pure doctrines of Lucifer, as Pike calls them, were not allowed to finally be out in public, in the public view. Uh, in the West, which has been Christianized for many hundreds of years, you could not practice Satanism openly. That is changing, and we're seeing that more and more now with these displays of the Baphomet and satanic tenets in public spaces now. Satanism and the occult are cool and popular, and being marketed more and more to young people. But let's break down this quote in a little more detail here and understand that this is a very satanic guy who's putting this out, and a very connected guy, Freemason, high level Freemason. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists and provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism. What is he talking about here? Well, we could paint this several different ways, but really it's communism, socialism, um, and the woke agenda that's kind of all mixed up into this evil package deal that we're seeing right now in the world. Really, the world is undergoing a worldwide communist takeover, is what's happening, and we saw this very clearly during COVID in the West. That the former British principalities, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, these were some of the most totalitarian um, during COVID with the lockdowns and really draconian rules attempting to crush and suppress and shut down churches during that time. We really saw that these nations, which are bastions of democracy, and I use that word in quotation marks because it's a catchphrase. That is, it's a code word. It doesn't mean democracy. It's a code word for socialism, which leads to communism ultimately. This agenda is being given right now free reign, basically, and here in the U.S. under Biden, we've been well. Biden is just a figurehead for other powers who are handling him. But we've been shown the ugly face of what this is going to look like if these people are really given control of society. We're seeing the transgender stuff being pushed. We're seeing wokeism. We're seeing um, just a breakdown in morality at all levels, a complete collapse of law and order, and standards of public decency. We're seeing women's sports just being raped, really. There's no other word for it. Women's sports being raped as they're allowing these men pervert men who identify as women into female locker rooms and bathrooms and to compete against women and things like that. This is the horror that Pike was talking about here. All this stuff is being allowed to go to its extreme, and the common people are not cool with all this stuff. And they're seeing it, and it's awful. It's disgusting. And we're seeing the nonsense. We're seeing the foolishness. Tonight we had the debate between Trump and Biden. And Biden was clearly shown for what he is, a senile, incompetent, disgusting old man. Um, and I don't know if they're going to try to steal another presidential election in the U.S. and prop him up for another 4 years. I don't know. Quite possibly. If that happens, we'll see the gloves and the mask come off even more because that power block will have consolidated in their mind power and won't have anything to lose anymore. They will just want to take it all, finish tearing down the last pillars of Western civilization and erecting their own. Well, really, what it will be is a communist new world order. This is what Pike's talking about. This system, which is rooted in absolute atheism, uh, and this is part of the, you could call it Big Bang cosmology, you could call it Darwinism. Um, Understand that these characters who were putting out various forms of totalitarian communist type government, they absolutely loved Darwin because that was the moral justification for these systems, that we're just animals and that society needs to go through evolution just like nature does, and it's going to be bloody, it's going to be red in tooth and claw. You're going to have to purge millions upon millions of people, and many of these totalitarian rulers holding to these ideologies did purge millions upon millions of people. I've been slowly working my way through Alexander Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag Archipelago. It's an astounding work, absolutely astounding. But you see parallels to what's going on in the West and here in the United States of America. Incredible and inescapable parallels that are you know, someone um, recently said that, 1984 is not supposed to be an instruction manual, but it sure seems like the governments in the West are following it like one as they roll out these increasingly totalitarian systems of government, taking more and more from the people and subjecting us more and more to the horrors that go along with these systems. Destroyers of civilization, um, these systems are called, but they're being given free rein so that people will see the ugliness of them. Understand that Christianity has already largely been dismantled in the West, and that's really what enabled all of these more evil atheistic systems to rise up in the first place. People were ripe for the deceptions of atheism, of communism, of Darwinism, of Big Bang cosmology, which we've talked about in this channel before. You get rid of God's truth, and something is going to seep in and fill that void. And it has not been wholesome, has it? We've seen it firsthand. But at this point, the multitude is already disillusioned with Christianity. Um, Now, the multitude, generally speaking, though, they are not atheists like the hardcore communists are, who don't believe in God whatsoever. Atheism, understand, is ultimately an irrational point of view. Logic and reason do point to the existence of a creator, a deity. And so Pike refers to the masses as deistic. What that means is they do believe in a higher power, but a pure deism holds that that power is kind of disconnected from reality in that it's not a personal power. Um, Bible believing Christians hold to a God who answers prayer and who is invested in their lives and in control of things, whereas the God of the deists is more like a watchmaker who the cosmos as a watch, wound it up, and now he's sitting back and just letting it take its course without interfering at all. And so this is where Pike here in this quote, if it's his quote, um, describes the multitude as deistic. They believe in a higher power, in a God, but they have no connection, no functional relationship with him. They don't see his actual um, handiwork or interaction in their lives in any way. And so then, when some power comes on the scene presenting itself as God, in this case, where it's going to be the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, here he is, lying wonders and miracles, as the book of Revelation tells us. When that finally comes on the scene, people are just going to swarm to it in mass. This is not Satan as the adversary, an unwholesome and evil entity. That side is presented in the communism, in the atheism, in the wokeism that is being given free rein right now. No, this is going to be Lucifer, the shining one, the light bringer, a Promethean figure, a figure that is here to offer enlightenment and guidance to humanity. Um, that is going to be incredibly seductive and tempting, and people are going to jump on that bandwagon wholesale. This is going to be presented as maybe even as the second coming of Jesus Christ. It wouldn't surprise me because Donald Trump at one point actually compared himself and his campaign to that, the second coming of Christ. But it's not going to be the Jesus Christ of the scriptures. The Bible says, I talked about this in Sunday school with my guys, in the end times, people are going to say, oh, Christ is over here in the wilderness, or Christ is over here in the secret chambers, maybe the secret chambers of the Vatican. He's here. He's come. His second coming is here. Don't be deceived by this. No, when he comes, it's going to be with the clouds, power and glory in the heavens. We'll know. And so if you have people whispering, oh, the second coming has happened over here, or the second coming's happened over there, or, he's here and he's setting up this secret government, that's not how it's going to play out. Don't be deceived by that. Uh, but all of this deception, basically setting up a terrible alternative that people are going to reject and then offering something that is still evil and deceptive, this pure doctrine of Lucifer and the system built around it. That's going to look so much more wholesome and attractive than the evils of atheism and communism, that people are going to flock to it and jump on the bandwagon. And it may even be presented as Christianity. It'll be a humanistic, Unitarian form of it. There may be a new one world religion, the Abrahamic Accords, something along that line, where, Islam, Judaism, and Roman Catholicism are all on board, as well as the charismatic movement in the U.S. and various other denominations. They'll all be on board. The only ones who will be excluded will be the Bible believers who actually hold to the scriptures and to the biblical Christ, the true Jesus Christ. That group will be ostracized and eventually hunted down, purged, persecuted, martyred. But I think we're being set up for this huge deception and this general reactionary movement which will follow. And the purpose of it, according to this quote, is to destroy both extremes, Christianity and atheism, in one fell swoop. The Luciferians, they don't want people to be atheists. They don't want people to be unreligious. But they just don't want people serving the true God either. They want that middle ground where people are very religious, but they're serving Lucifer as God. And that's really what everything's being set up for right now. And so without further ado, I'm going to lay out my top 3 Antichrist candidates right now. And this is going to be unpopular, but I'm just going to put it out there. I want you guys to be thinking ahead, because if there's suddenly this incredible reversal where good guys suddenly, win the day, and the white hats have been working behind the scenes all the time, and oh my, they're restoring justice and the rule of law to everything, and we're going to have a new world order where liberty for the people and prosperity, and finally there will be justice in the world. There will be an end to war. It'll be a time of peace. It'll be great. I'm all for love and peace and all that good stuff, but there's deception coming. Gotta be careful. There's gonna be a poison. There could be a poison pill at the heart of all this stuff. And anyway, I do think there's a real danger that we're being set up for a grand deception. And because I'm seeing just over the top evil, there's stuff that is just outrageous, incredibly bizarre, that's being allowed to go on, that in a sane world wouldn't. But I think it's intentional. I think it's being allowed to fester and present in all its extreme hideousness, because people are going to be pushed to the other option, the desired outcome, so that they can be easily led in a direction that the Luciferians want to lead them. And I know this isn't going to be popular, so why do I have 3 Antichrist candidates, so to speak? You can kind of see the tabs at the top, so there they are: Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and MrBeast. What am I thinking? Why are there 3? Well, God has his Holy Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and the Bible's absolutely clear that God is a Trinity. I've talked about this in other videos. If you're not sure about it, go look that up. he is. That's how he has worked and presented himself. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Um, all three are fully God, just different persons of the Godhead who work in different ways. However, the Bible is clear that all of them were present at the beginning of creation before time, and that they all are God. Let us make man in our image, plural, and there's a reason for that. There were three persons there during that creation week who were active in the creation. And the persons of the Godhead have love one for each other. God is love. Talked about all that stuff, and you can look that up in my other video if you're interested. But remember that Satan is an imitator. He doesn't really offer anything tremendously new. He just takes what God's already done and tries to present it in a more appetizing package. So God, has a perfect plan for marriage, one man, one woman for life, faithful to each other. It's an exclusive sexual relationship, and Satan says, let's just take the boundaries off of that, and anything goes. Um, Satan hasn't really created anything new. He's just offering good things because, sex and pleasure and relationships, those are good things, but he's offering them in the wrong way, in the wrong proportion, to the wrong degree, with the wrong people, as opposed to how God intended it to be. Anyway, as an imitator and a corrupter, Satan also has his unholy trinity in Revelation. These are revealed to be the Antichrist, the beast, and the false prophet. And I'm not entirely sure what the breakdown of that is. Um, they all have different actions and different roles that they're doing. And because there's some haziness there as to who is who, the Antichrist does seem to be the main leading figure of Satan's evil trinity. Um, so I'm just going to say that I think these three fellows, these three men, could fit the bill in various ways. But I don't really know. These are just the top choices for our time. Understand that historically Christians have often had theories about, who the Antichrist was going to be based on who the most wicked world leaders and were at the time, and who the people were who were persecuting the church the most. And understand that there's other factors at play here too. Generally speaking, in the past, the Antichrist was seen as possibly being the Pope or related to the Catholic Church somehow, simply because the Pope is, the position technically calls itself the Vicar of Christ, or the stand-in, or literally an Antichrist in the place of Christ. It's a false Christ figure, someone who claims to be Christ's representative on earth. So Christians historically, and especially because the Roman Catholic Church has been the greatest persecutor of true Bible-believing Christians, historically Christians have believed that the Antichrist would be associated with the Catholic Church, possibly even the Pope. And we are at a point right now where it looks like we'll be getting a new Pope within the next few years, just due to how things are going. So my Antichrist candidate list here could be wrong. However, well, however, I'm going to lay these three out for a number of reasons, and I'll just give you some little things here and there. So Donald John Trump, um, the man is most likely a Freemason. Scottish Rite Freemasonry, one of the most powerful and connected branches of Freemasonry. It's highly likely that he is. His longtime pastor and mentor is a high-level Freemason. Um, Donald Trump quite possibly is himself. He's talked about in one of his books studying Kabbalah, which is It's a system of occultism that really I think it largely pertains to controlling these demonic entities. But it originated. It's Jewish, and it came about during the Babylonian captivity, basically when the Jews absorbed elements of Babylonian mystery religion and kind of brought them into Judaism, where they remained ever since. Um, so the Kabbalah could be described as a Jewish flavor of Satanism, basically. It's not what the Bible teaches about God. The Kabbalah has teaches that God is, they call God Ein Sof. They have the Kabbalistic tree of life, which is this uh, diagram that makes up the composition of God. Supposedly, there's 10 nodes, which each represent individual gods, goddesses, or attributes of the god Ein Sof. And Kabbalists hold that Ein Sof is the creator. Now, this is not the God of the Bible at all. This is something that has been created since then and added to the scriptures. It is a creation of man, and it's why I call it really essentially Jewish Satanism. But Donald Trump, in one of his books, alluded to the fact that he apparently has studied the Kabbalah and had a tutor in it. This is occult stuff. This is deeply occult stuff. There's other figures surrounding Donald Trump that are highly questionable. The entire Q phenomenon. Um, Q is a false prophet, and there's some weird stuff going on with that. Deeply unwholesome and weird things. Um, just the entire process of how Q operated and got his doctrines and concepts out. Uh, using these web boards where internet users would crunch these ideas and do these little mini research projects and then be rewarded with pornography, and then bring back their interpretations of Q's teachings, and the best ones would be selected and disseminated. Just weird cultish stuff. And while on the one hand Q was unearthing a lot of truths that truthers have already discovered to be true, basically, there's just the way that Q operated, and some of the stuff going on there was just highly, highly questionable. Weird stuff. And then we have Michael Flynn, one of Trump's most ardent supporters. I believe on the surface of things he's a Catholic, but there was the opening the heavens conference where he spoke. He was one of the key speakers there. And at that conference, he delivered a speech that was nearly word for word the same speech that this theosophist witch named Elizabeth Clare Prophet had delivered some years before. She had delivered this message supposedly while communing with entities on the other side, or in other words, demons, being a conduit for demons. So this Michael Flynn, that speech was full of things like invoking the sevenfold rays and the legions of Saint Michael's angels. Legions is an interesting term because in the Bible that refers to an innumerable swarm of demons that was tormenting a particular individual. There's just some strange things surrounding Donald Trump. Symbology built into some photographs that he's taken with the numbers that have presented. Um, Actions that he's taken or that he has not taken, things that he's been involved with, like the rollout of Operation Warp Speed, the COVID vaccines, which we now know, if you've been paying attention. I got to be careful on YouTube what I say about this. I've had numerous videos taken down or shut down because of this. Um, let's just say that there are entire states now that are suing Pfizer, and we know what that vaccine was intended to do if you've been paying attention and doing your homework. Um, so is Donald John Trump going to be the savior that is set up to redeem us, so to speak, from all these evils that are befalling the West right now. Maybe. And he has, or someone in his campaign anyway, using his platforms, has compared him to the second coming of Christ before. He is a very arrogant fellow. And when you ask the question, who would be brash enough to go up into a rebuilt Jewish temple um, and then claim to be God incarnate? Um, there aren't a whole lot of people alive today that I would think would pull a stunt like that, but Donald Trump is possibly one of them. And I don't want him to be the Antichrist. Let me put it that way. I just want a quiet, peaceful life. You know, free from suffering and hardship. I want to find a nice wife, settle down, live in peace and quietness, and have some kids. The American dream. And hopefully, Donald Trump will be able to restore some sanity to this country and we can have that. That's what I want. But, reality doesn't give us what we want all the time. And I just have this sense that there's more to it than that. There's more to it than that he's just this great philanthropist and patriot who wants to bring back the greatness of a bygone America. Then we have Elon Musk, highly interesting individual, had a very unique upbringing, Jewish name, but has he and the family apparently don't really claim to be Jewish. By the way, Trump and Musk have an interesting connection, which is the Wharton School. And I've been digging a little bit in trying to figure out if the Wharton School has Jesuit connections, because then the Jesuits are a militant order. I'll just give you a very brief. It's been a while since I've looked into this. I might not have it all quite correct. It's my understanding that the Jesuits are a militant Catholic order, and the head of the Jesuits is called the Black Pope and is incredibly powerful within Catholicism. When the Jesuits were created, one of the early Black Popes, one of the leaders of the Jesuits, went to the Pope, the surface Pope, and basically dedicated the order completely to spreading the Catholic Church and basically swore that the Jesuits would do whatever it took to spread Catholicism and its dominion, even to the point of doing evil, breaking laws and commandments. And so basically, they're the ends justify the means sort of organization. They'll do anything in the furtherance of their mission. And specifically, one thing that they intend to do is to set knowledge against knowledge. What does that mean? Well, there's knowledge, established systems of learning that have existed for a long time, and then there's a false knowledge. And so, one function that the Jesuits claim, or at least some of their leaders claimed that they would employ, is to set up these false knowledge systems, basically to make people question everything. And then when everything seems shaky and it seems like there's shifting sand everywhere and no one knows what's true or false anymore, the one thing that would offer hope would be the authority of the Catholic Church and people would return to it. This was a plan that was devised to destroy Protestant Christianity and bring everything back under the control of the Church, the Catholic Church, I mean, setting knowledge against knowledge. And I do believe personally that part of that was this whole heliocentrism versus geocentrism. What is the center? Is the Earth fixed and stationary like the Bible says, or um, does it orbit the sun and so forth? Big Bang cosmology, understand, is a knowledge system. It's a false knowledge system that's been raised up to oppose a biblical Christianity, a biblical worldview, causing chaos and confusion. And people who haven't dug deeply into this stuff tend to go with the science, but understand that science is a human product. Anyway, that's a rabbit trail for another day. It is just interesting that these two guys have this connection. Elon Musk, though, it's my understanding that he started out with about $16,000, and then he was at this company over here for a few years, this company over here for a few years. He wasn't really in any one place long enough to have contributed anything of tremendous value until later in his life. And so it's just kind of weird that everything he touches seems to turn to gold all the way up. And now he's worth what? A couple $100 billion? 214 billion as of this year. Very interesting. He's obviously also part of the globalist deception. Um, there was that publicity stunt he pulled where they put a Tesla Roadster into space, which was clearly a fabricated event. The 4 hour live stream itself is still available online, and you can, if you study it, you can see that it's CG. It's fake. It never happened. But Musk said that it happened. He said that you could tell it was real because it looks so fake, honestly. That's literally what he said about it. He's a liar. He's got some ulterior motives, and he's still pushing the heliocentric globe Earth outer space deception for some reason, just like Freemasons and NASA are. So this is not a good guy. There's just a lot of other weird stuff about this guy. Um, so here's one. He has married, his mother was a witch, and he married an actual witch. Or maybe not married, but at least had some kids with one. So he is surrounded by occult people in his circles. Uh, really strange. He does have alphabet agency, by which I mean U.S. government connections as well. He knows people in his life related to the CIA, for example. Um, so just some weird stuff there. What else? Yeah, there was that Halloween where he wore a armor set, a red armor set that had the Baphomet symbol, which is a representation of Satan, basically, on the chest and on the bracers, the arm guards. The set was made of red leather, valued at something like $7,000, and was titled "The Devil's Champion." And supposedly, all the Musk defenders were, oh, he's just saying that he's the devil's advocate and poking fun at the left who calls him the devil. Um, I wonder what's really going on with this guy. Interestingly enough, too, it seems that his involvement in a lot of these companies works in favor of the establishment for keeping certain truths under wraps. Tesla was doing some pretty interesting things. Then Musk took over, and frankly, it's a laughing stock now. SpaceX. So remember, about 20 years ago, there was talk about privatizing the exploration of outer space, and SpaceX was a big part of that. Musk took over, and supposedly outer space is now accessible to private companies, unless, of course, Elon Musk is actually a front man for the world government, in which case it just looks like outer space exploration has been privatized when really it hasn't been at all and it's still being gate-kept. He's into things like AI, he's into things like Neuralink, and he's into something called X. X is a very big package. What is X? Well, in communist China, they have this app platform where you can do everything from vote to pay your bills to it serves as an ID system. Um, Musk wants to create something similar. We could call it tongue in cheek. We could call it a mark of the beast system that you would need to buy or sell any commodity that would also serve as a way of tracking you, and that would serve as a personal identification system. And then, of course, yes, you could vote through it as well. Everything in one place. Uh, Not that there's no red flags or warnings there that all that power, control, and information would be consolidated through one entity. No, nothing strange about that. But that's what he's aiming at with Twitter and with PayPal, which remember initially was, I think, X.com was the original X.com. This is what he's still looking to do: is this one-stop shop, this X system that has in its characteristics, it does resemble the biblical mark of the beast quite a bit. And he's also working with implantable technology, Neuralink, which is going to be an interface between the human brain and the digital realm, which is really quite dangerous. And if you look at what the Bible has to say about the mark of the beast and the beast, it does. There could very well be a technological connection here. But this guy is a liar. That is absolutely 100% certain. He lied about Starman, which was that dummy that was in the Tesla Roadster that they supposedly put into space, and there's a website where you can supposedly track its location throughout the solar system, where it is now. Um, that whole thing was just a big lie. And Starman. Starman was the name of that dummy, which is an anagram for Mr. Satan, by the way, which is kind of interesting as well. But supposedly, um, no special modifications were made to the Tesla Roadster whatsoever before putting it into space. They just took a Tesla Roadster and put it up there. Um, um, Other flat earthers have pointed out uh, that's a little strange. How exactly a pressurized tire is going to work in the vacuum of space as is without some kind of special, considerations, for example. But of course, the whole thing was just CGI wizardry. It was a lie that Elon Musk sticks to today and will never tell the truth about, most likely. So that's enough about Elon Musk. This guy, he is a power player. The war in Ukraine and his Starlink, is it? I believe, network of satellites that he can move around to, offer internet connections to people and stuff in various places. This is a guy who is actually interfering in world conflicts. Uh, how he got this level of power and influence in the world, I'm still scratching my head at. Of course, uh, maybe he got it in the usual way. We do know that certain people are able to make deals with spiritual principalities in exchange for wealth and power. It is a real thing. And some famous persons have admitted to it. And possibly that's how Musk here has gotten to where he is today. Who knows? MrBeast is on this list because well, firstly, there's his name, Mr. Beast. It's really interesting how society recently has just taken things that are associated with Satan and evil, taken them and twisted them around so they're cool. So back in the day, um, there's the beast and the mark of the beast. These are not good things. But now, oh, he's the beast, or he's such a beast, talking about a sports player or what have you. That is considered to be a really good thing or a compliment now. And then we have this guy, MrBeast, who has said that he would like to be first in line to get Musk's Neuralink when that thing gets rolled out. He wants to be the first person. Now, he wouldn't technically be the first because they are doing human trials now. They did monkey trials. They didn't turn out real well. Weird stuff was going on. But they are doing human trials now. But MrBeast, I guess, wants to be the first person to, once it becomes commercially viable and they roll out the first consumer model, he wants to be the first guy to get that Neuralink implanted in his brain. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know. He's an interesting character. He has tons of followers. 291 million subscribers. He is currently the most subscribed channel on YouTube, which is, one of the biggest establishment propaganda platforms on Earth. Um, this guy is a phenomenon. And he seems to be a philanthropist, going around the world doing good deeds. He went to a Christian school when he was younger. Um, However, some of the stuff that he's into, I'm not really sure how much of a good Christian this fellow is. Maybe just kind of Christianized culturally growing up, but there's been some stuff with a transgender person on his channel and yada yada. I don't really follow him or know much about that. Some of the younger guys in my church are more into this stuff than I am. But the people like this are the sorts of people that the devil really wants to snare and enslave, because then he can use them to draw these 291 million subscribers along for the ride. And I really do think that there's something weird that could happen here, technologically speaking. Like, this guy gets the Neuralink implanted, and it is what I fear it is. Well, it links the human mind to the digital world. The digital world is via quantum computing. There's an effort to make it accessible to demonic powers and directly manipulatable by those powers, is what I think is going on there. Will this allow this man and anyone else who gets that Neuralink device to be essentially hacked and hijacked by demonic entities, or even just by malicious human hackers? Maybe making the brain hackable doesn't seem like a real great thing to me. Uh, but that would be a pretty weird thing, don't you think? They implant the Neuralink into MrBeast, and suddenly MrBeast becomes this godlike entity with all knowledge and wisdom at his fingertips. And maybe we should make him rule the world and solve all our problems for us, because MrBeast has ascended. This is like revelation level stuff here. Now, this is conjecture on my part. I don't really know how things are going to play out, but these guys, at the very least, based on the things that, well, the Musk for sure, based on the stuff that he's involved with and the level of influence, if we're in the lead up to the end times now, which I believe we are, and these things are going to culminate within the next couple decades, which they could very well. I hope not. I really hope not, but they may. And if so, I'd say these guys could well be key players to those end times events that we see recorded in the scriptures. Well, I hope that you have found this video to be stimulating mentally, spiritually. If you have any thoughts, feel free to share. And I guess we'll just leave it there for now. Have a good night.